I struck the match at 9:43 a.m., watching the flame catch and steady itself before touching it to the wick. The scent of vanilla and smoke curled through my kitchen like a promise, or maybe a prayer. My kitchen table had disappeared under an avalanche of glass jars, wax flakes in ivory and cream, essential oil bottles with hand-lettered labels, and my notebook filled with scent combinations that probably made no sense to anyone but me. I had quit my soul-crushing call center job exactly 1 week before, walking out after 5 years of scripted conversations and fluorescent lighting that made everything look half dead. My supervisor had looked at me like I was insane when I'd handed in my resignation. "You're leaving for what?" she'd asked, and when I told her I was starting a candle business, the break room had erupted in barely concealed laughter. But that was nothing compared to my older brother. Damon walked into my kitchen that Tuesday morning, expensive coffee from the artisan place downtown in hand, took one look at my setup, and burst out laughing. Not a chuckle, not a smirk. A full-bodied, doubled-over, tears streaming down his face laugh that seemed to shake the jars on my table. "You're gonna sell smells for a living," he managed between gasps, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Oh my God, this is too good. Call me when you're bankrupt. Actually, no, call me before so I can witness the crash landing." His words hung in the air heavier than the soot from my matches. I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face in half and kept pouring wax into the jar in front of me, watching the liquid pool and settle. My hands only shook a little. I would prove him wrong, or go down in flames trying. Damon had always been the golden one. The path was paved for him from birth, and he'd walked it with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned whether the road was meant for them. College scholarship to state, then business school, then the corner office at 32. His LinkedIn profile read like a humble brag generator. His suits were tailored. His handshake appeared in the business section of the local paper. I was the dreamer who colored outside the lines, sometimes outside the budget, and occasionally outside the realm of practical possibility, if you asked my family. I'd changed majors 3 times, worked 6 different jobs in 4 years, and had a Pinterest board labeled Someday Projects with 847 pins. Mom told me to ignore Damon's teasing when I called her that night, my voice tight with unshed tears. "He doesn't mean it, honey. He shows love differently." But it felt like family perfume, the kind that clings to your clothes, seeps into your skin, impossible to wash off no matter how many showers you take. I worked until midnight that first night, and then every night that week. My labels were crooked, applied with shaking hands and too much hope. My fingers grew raw from tying twine around jar necks. My heart beat with a determination that felt both fragile and fierce, like a candle flame in a drafty room. Week 1, I listed 3 candles online. Morning ritual with coffee and vanilla notes, forest floor with pine and earth, and citrus dawn that smelled like optimism should. I set up the shop page with trembling fingers, wrote product descriptions I revised 17 times, and took photos in the best light my kitchen had to offer, which wasn't much. By Friday, I had sold exactly 1 candle. To myself. I'd forgotten to log out of my account when testing the checkout process. I laughed in the quiet of my kitchen at 11 p.m., the sound echoing off lonely jars and bouncing back at me like mockery. The laugh turned into something that might have been a sob, but I choked it down. I lowered prices by $3. I adjusted the scent descriptions to sound more luxurious. I took 47 new photos with better lighting, climbing onto my counter to angle the shots through my kitchen window at golden hour. Week 2, a stranger in California bought 2 candles. I did a little dance in my kitchen, nearly dropping the box I was preparing, my cat fleeing from the room in alarm. I wrapped those candles like they were made of spun gold, included a handwritten thank you note, and drove to the post office with the kind of smile that made the clerk ask if I'd won the lottery. Something like that, I told her. Progress smelled like coconut and hope, with bass notes of maybe I'm not completely delusional. Week 3, disaster struck with the subtlety of a meteor. I'd gotten ambitious. I decided to create a new line of jewel-toned candles, deep purples, rich emeralds, sapphire blues. I'd ordered new dyes, read 3 tutorials, and felt confident in my abilities. The wax overheated. I didn't notice until it was too late, too focused on getting the color just right. The first jar cracked from the temperature shock with a sound like a gunshot. Then another. Purple dye splattered across my kitchen wall like a bad bruise, a Jackson Pollock painting created by failure. Hot wax pooled on my floor. The acrid smell of burning filled the air. I sat down right there on the floor in the spreading mess, not even caring that purple wax was probably staining my jeans. Tears dripped down my face, mixing with the disaster around me. My phone buzzed. Damon, how's the smell factory? Made your first million yet? I stared at that text for a long time. I almost took a photo of the purple splattered disaster, almost hit send with a caption like, "You were right." My thumb hovered over the button. Instead, I took a breath that shuddered in my chest. I stood up. I got paper towels and cleaning spray and worked until my knees ached and my shoulders burned. I would not give him evidence. I would not give him the satisfaction. The next morning, I drove to the craft store before it opened, waiting in my car in the parking lot with a coffee and a list. When the doors unlocked, I walked through them with the grim determination of a soldier heading into battle. I restocked supplies with money I couldn't really afford to spend. I bought a kitchen thermometer. I bought a proper double boiler. I bought protective equipment. I stayed up until dawn perfecting a new batch, this time measuring temperature every 2 minutes, testing on old jars first. When I finally succeeded, 12 perfect candles in varying jewel tones, I nearly cried again, but this time from something that felt like the opposite of despair. On a whim, I set up my phone and filmed the process of making the next batch. I sped up the footage, added music I'd found on a free licensing site, something upbeat and inspiring, and posted it online with the caption, "Behind the scenes at Luma Lights, made with love and maybe too much caffeine." I went to bed at 6 a.m. and woke up at noon to my phone having a seizure. The video had gained 3,000 views overnight. Comments flooded in faster than I could read them. "So satisfying to watch. This is amazing. Where can I buy these? Drop the link." My heart raced faster than the time-lapse of melting wax. My hands shook as I replied to comments, added links, felt something enormous and terrifying begin to shift. By month 2, orders hit 50 a week. 50 actual orders from 50 actual strangers who wanted to pay money for something I made. I converted our garage into a studio, much to my landlord's confusion and eventual permission. I installed industrial shelving that took me and Mom 6 hours to assemble, with much swearing and a near injury involving a rubber mallet. I bought a wax melter bigger than my microwave from a restaurant supply store. The guy who sold it to me asked what I was making. "Dreams," I told him. "I'm making dreams." He laughed, but rang it up anyway. I labeled jars until dawn, the quiet scent of victory replacing sleep, replacing doubt, replacing the call center job that felt like a lifetime ago instead of just weeks. Damon visited again on a Saturday afternoon, unannounced as always, appearing in my garage doorway with that trademark smirk. His eyes traveled over the stacks of boxes, the shelving units, the proper labeling station I'd set up. "Cute hobby," he said, hands in the pockets of his pressed khakis. Something hot and sharp rose in my chest. I walked over to my completed orders, pulled out a specific candle I'd made just in case, and handed it to him. "It's called Success," I said, watching his face. "Smells like your ego, notes of expensive cologne and unearned confidence." He sniffed it, trying to look unimpressed, but I saw his lips twitch. "Harsh." "Accurate." He tucked it under his arm anyway. "Free stuff, now that I actually like." I bit my tongue hard enough to taste copper and smiled with all my teeth. Brotherly discount. After he left, I stood in the garage for a long time, breathing in wax and fragrance oils and something that might have been pride. Month 3 arrived like a gift. A local boutique, the kind of place that sold $70 throw pillows and artisanal olive oil, reached out through my website. The owner, a woman named Margaret with silver hair and impeccable taste, wanted to see my products in person. I delivered 24 jars with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, my car smelling like a botanical garden had exploded inside it. Margaret examined each one with the kind of focus usually reserved for appraising diamonds. She sniffed. She held them up to the light. She tested the weight. Finally, she nodded. "These are good, really good. I'll take all of them." She wrote a check right there, and I stared at the numbers until tears blurred the ink into abstract art. Real money. Not PayPal numbers on a screen, but an actual check with actual dollars that I could deposit into my actual bank account. I drove home with all the windows down despite it being November, cold wind whipping through the car, carrying the scent of what I decided was triumph. I mailed Damon a candle labeled Brotherly Love with a purple bow. The scent was actually one of my best, sandalwood and leather and something warm. I'd spent 2 weeks perfecting it. He texted back a thumbs-up emoji. No apology. No, wow, this is actually great. No acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely delusional. But also no laugh, no mocking, no I told you so. I called that a win. Month 4, something shifted. Orders didn't just grow, they exploded. 50 became 100, became 200 a week. I couldn't keep up. I was working 16-hour days, my garage smelling permanently of fragrance oils, my hands developing calluses in new places. I hired my neighbor, Tasha, a single mom who worked 3 part-time jobs and still somehow maintained her sense of humor. She'd been watching my garage transform over months, occasionally stopping by with coffee and curiosity. "You need help," she'd said one evening, watching me frantically pour wax at 9 p.m. "And I need better hours than the overnight gas station shift." We turned on music, loud, unapologetic pop that made us dance between the shelves. The garage glowed like a lava lamp with our multiple wax melters running. We developed systems, assembly lines, quality checks. Sales hit 200 a week consistently. I raised prices, added luxury packaging with custom tissue paper and ribbon, and still sold out. "You know what you're doing?" Tasha asked one night, sealing a box with practiced efficiency. "Not even a little bit," I admitted. "Goods, me neither, but it's working anyway." Damon's birthday arrived in early January. I sent him a deluxe gift set, 6 candles in a custom wooden box, each one a different scent, all wrapped like something from a high-end department store. It cost me more than I wanted to spend and less than my pride was worth. 2 days later, his wife Leela posted a photo on social media. Their living room, soft lighting, my candles arranged on their coffee table. The caption read, "Best smelling house ever, thanks to my talented sister-in-law. Who knew luxury could come in a jar?" Friends commented immediately, "Where did you get these? I need these in my life. Link, please." Leela tagged my business in the comments. My phone buzzed like an angry beehive. Orders flooded in. I grinned so wide my cheeks hurt, and Tasha looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "What happened?" "Validation," I told her. "Validation happened." 6 weeks later, Leela messaged me directly. "Can I get 20 more? Damon is legitimately obsessed. He lights one every night during dinner. It's become a whole thing." I laughed until my sides ached, until tears ran down my face, until Tasha demanded to know what was so funny. "My brother," I gasped between laughs. "The one who mocked me, he's obsessed." Obsessed smelled like citrus and payback, with undertones of poetic justice. By month 5, we'd outgrown the garage. I rented a small warehouse space in the industrial part of town. Nothing fancy, but it had loading docks and proper ventilation, and enough room to actually move without knocking over inventory. Tasha became my full-time manager. She was better at organization than I was, better at systems, better at remembering to eat lunch. I focused on product development and marketing, the creative chaos that felt like home. We started filming daily routines for social media. Behind-the-scenes content, candle pouring videos, day in the life reels. Our follower count climbed. 10,000 people wanted to watch us make candles, wanted to see the process, wanted to feel connected to something handmade. Then a popular lifestyle influencer with 2 million followers featured my candles in a self-care favorites video. Sales tripled overnight. We couldn't keep up with orders. We hired 2 more people. I invested in professional branding, a graphic designer, new labels with my logo in rose gold foil. Velvet pouches for gift sets. Luxury looked like proof, felt like validation, smelled like success. The phone call from Damon came on a Tuesday evening. I almost didn't answer, busy calculating inventory needs and trying not to panic about cash flow. "Hey," he said, voice softer than usual, lacking its typical edge of amusement. "Your stuff is actually really good. Leela wants more, like a lot more." "I can do a bulk discount," I offered, professional despite the way my heart hammered. A long pause. "Listen, I've been thinking, can I invest?" I almost dropped the phone. "What?" "In your business. I want to invest. I have capital. You need growth funding. It makes sense." "Invest means you believe in something," I said slowly, turning the words over like stones. "You have to actually believe it will succeed." He laughed, but it sounded different than before. Warmer, more genuine. "I believe in money, and yours is making it." "Close enough," I replied, unable to keep the smile out of my voice. Month 6, I walked into the bank and prepaid 6 months of Mom's mortgage. The check felt heavy in my hand, weighted with more than just paper and ink. She cried when I told her, held me so tight I could barely breathe, whispered into my hair, "You didn't just smell success, baby, you became it." I soaked in her pride like wax soaking dye, letting it color everything. Damon and Leela visited the warehouse on a Saturday morning. I watched his face as he walked in, watched his eyes travel up shelves that reached twice his height, all of them packed with inventory. Labels gleaming, systems humming. Tasha directing 2 employees with the confidence of someone who'd found her calling. "You did this?" Damon asked, his voice strange. "All of this?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He stuck out his hand, formal and serious. "I was wrong about everything. I'm proud of you." His words hung in the air like incense, like forgiveness given form. I shook his hand, my eyes watering, and then he pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. Leela placed a standing order that day, 50 candles delivered to her salon every month. She'd been giving them as client gifts, selling them at reception, building them into her brand. "My clients ask for specific scents by name now," she told me, beaming. "And I get to say, my sister-in-law makes these. Do you know how that feels, to brag about family?" I did know. I was learning. I launched a new scent in March called Brotherly Laugh, notes of cedar, citrus, and what I listed on the label as humble pie. The description read, "For anyone ever told their dream stinks, light this and prove them wrong." It sold out in 48 hours. Reviews poured in from strangers who'd never met Damon, but knew someone like him. "This smells like victory." "Burning this while I work on my business plan." "Gifted this to my dad who said I'd never make it. He loved it. Sweet revenge." The local Chamber of Commerce invited me to speak at their monthly business breakfast. I stood at the podium in front of 80 small business owners, my hands shaking only slightly, and told them about starting with nothing but matches and stubbornness. Damon sat in the front row, clapping until his hands turned pink. I ended with, "Light your own path. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for belief. Just light the match and watch the doubters follow your glow." The crowd stood and cheered. Damon hugged me hard afterward, whispering, "That's my sister," to anyone within earshot. 1 year in, I hit my first $100,000 in revenue. I threw a party at the warehouse. Fairy lights strung from the rafters, music playing through borrowed speakers, free samples for everyone who'd supported me, and even for some who hadn't. Damon brought champagne, the expensive kind he usually reserved for corporate events. We toasted under flickering fluorescent lights, surrounded by the scent of vanilla and victory thick in the air, and for the first time in my life, my brother looked at me like an equal. I started a small fund for teen entrepreneurs, micro grants for weird dreams that adults dismissed. $500 per recipient. Not enough to fund a business, but enough to prove someone believed. The first recipient was a 16-year-old girl who wanted to make soap that smelled like books. She cried when I handed her the check. Really? Really? Go write your own chapter. Damon invested $10,000 of his own money, buying shares, earning a seat at the table I'd built from nothing. He answers business calls now with, "Luma Lights, this is Damon. How can I brighten your day?" I grin every single time. We opened a tiny retail shop downtown last month. The sign glows at night like a full moon, visible from 3 blocks away. Grand opening day, Mom cut the ribbon with scissors that cost more than my first bulk wax order, tears shining on her cheeks. Damon hugged me in front of local news cameras. "My sister taught me that dreams have wicks," he said into a reporter's microphone. "And if you keep them lit long enough, eventually everyone else sees the light too." Last week, Leela ordered 200 candles for her salon's 5th anniversary party. She hugged me when she picked them up, whispering, "You didn't just start a business, you lit up our family." I hugged back, breathing in lavender and love and the scent of having proven something I'd needed to prove. So here's the truth about laughter. The mocking kind, the doubting kind, the kind that makes you want to give up and prove them right. It's just wind, unless you turn it into fuel. My brother laughed when I started a candle business, and I decided to let that laughter burn. I fed it into my determination like kindling, watched it fuel late nights and early mornings and moments when quitting seemed easier than continuing. Now his wife buys my candles in bulk. Now he answers my business phone with pride in his voice. Now he tells people his sister taught him about perseverance. I don't smell revenge in the air of my shop, or my warehouse, or my life. I smell victory. I smell vanilla and cedarwood and citrus dawn. I smell the sweet scent of dreams that refuse to die when someone laughed at them. I smell a brother who finally sees the light, not because I forced him to look, but because eventually, if you burn bright enough, even the skeptics can't help but notice the glow. And that, more than any sales number or retail location or media feature, smells exactly like success.